how did you know that you needed to bring on a head of marketing or a head of sales? Was there, like, were you super data driven about it? Did you know when I hit this metric, I'm going to bring someone on? I know that's probably not you. Or did you have a feeling? Did you meet someone and want to bring them on? What was your methodology in hiring some of your key executives?
That's a good question. You know, to be fair to us back then, you didn't have the types of playbooks that you have now, right? Like, I think one of the things that's changed just in the last 5 years is it's like, oh, here's a startup playbook. And, you know, when we started, there wasn't even SaaS. Like, it was application service provider, ASP, you know, and we were early and we were building our own infrastructure. Anyways, there wasn't, so we were kind of reinventing the wheel or inventing the wheel for the first time in some of these cases, because it just wasn't well documented, you know, what the KPIs need to be to drive certain hires. I think there's better data now and better ways to look at these businesses, which is great for founders. I think there's a better roadmap. You know, for me personally, we would just look at I usually looked at where I was having to spend a lot of time at things I wasn't good at. And so, you know, when we had the 3 founders, the first hire we made was marketing, because we all looked around and was like, okay, none of us know how to do this. Like, we could do everything else in the business. But we were like, you know, I mean, I was making up marketing documents and proposals and they all looked terrible. Like, from a design element, like, everything looked awful. And so really we needed a designer more than like a demand gen person, which we were doing pretty good at, but designer, and then, you know, all the other kind of marketing things that came behind that, brand building, and now there's such a science behind, you know, all of your SEO and your, you know, your ads and your content marketing and thought leadership all kind of playing together, and there's like a good playbook to build that stuff. But I think that, and then the next part was, you know, what parts of the business the team are not scaling well. And I think one of the hardest things to do is have some feel for building a bench or hedging for people that aren't going to scale, right? And I had people in different roles that just didn't scale up. And so then you were kind of stuck, right? Like, okay, now the worst thing for culture in a startup is when you've got to go hire the senior person to sit on top of your rock star performer who couldn't scale, because the same thing always happens. The rock star performer wanted that job. They couldn't quite cut it. You've had conversations with them about it, but they still kind of believe they should be able to have that. You bring in the senior manager who knows how to scale, but they don't know anything about the business. So now they got to go depend on the rock star who wants their job for everything. And they're like, why do I have to train this guy up? Like, why is this not my job? And I think that puts a lot of risk on that team that didn't get to be the manager. Same thing could happen if you had 2 rock stars on a team and you've got to pick one, right? And then the other one leaves. And so just hedging a little bit, you know, one of the things we did was you could reshuffle your org chart a little bit, like on operations. Maybe we spun out the design team because I had a really strong leader there. Where I wouldn't have normally done that, I would have left it in like the implementation team. But okay, now I've got a smaller implementation team with maybe a manager that doesn't need to be as senior as it was before, because I've kind of redone the org chart. So you got some tools there. I think they're all tough decisions. You know, I think that's why you have a board and an advisory board, to kind of think through some of those conversations and decisions.
I'm curious. I want to do a quick follow-up on that last piece. I think that's going to be something that as like a founder or even like a people leader over like a larger team, that's going to be something that keeps on coming up. It's that really strong, like rock star individual contributor who thinks like, hey, why am I not getting that role? I see it happen all the time. I've talked to founders about that same thing. What are some things that you have done? How do you navigate those conversations? How do you help, you know, set the stage for that type of situation to happen? How do you get the rock star to be like, to accept that decision?
Yeah. Well, I think number one is that a lot of people don't understand that management is actually a skill set, right? Just like coding in a certain language or being able to manage the database, like management isn't something that everybody's good at, and a lot of people haven't developed. And so I think that's part of it, is like, hey, this job doesn't just go to the smartest person on the team, the best individual contributor. And you see this in dev a lot, where a lot of devs don't want to be the manager, but they want progress, right? Like, hey, I want a promotion. I want to make more money. I want to be on a positive track. And all you can show me is management. And that's a problem. And I think there's some options there and ways to do that. But I think the other thing that's just critical is when you're doing your reviews, like, one, understanding where people want to go, and then understanding like what their gaps are and just being really honest about it. I see so many people who, in a startup, like, we didn't do formal reviews forever at Granicus, but we had a culture where we cared so much about the people and we were working with them all the time that we were always having that conversation. And I think, Sasha, like, you and I talked about this at one point, like, I'm always having that conversation with people. You know, I'm just like, hey, you could have, like, let's work on this and go there. And if you're doing it in a way that gives people the comfort that you're investing in them and you're trying to help them be their best self, then you can give that feedback all the time. And so then it's like, hey, I need you to get here, right? You want to get here, like, here's the things that you need to do. And if you're far enough ahead, you're giving yourself as the CEO the opportunity to see if that's going to progress or not, and like get ahead of it. Where you're really screwed is like, if you're growing really fast or you lose some people and all of a sudden it's like, all right, in the next 30 days, I need somebody in this role. And like, there's no way I can coach this person up because I didn't plan ahead.
Right.
Now I go just hire somebody to do it. And like I said, I think that becomes a big culture issue. You guys know, like, the early team that helped get things going in a company being replaced by the senior people for the roles that they always wanted, it really hurts the culture. And but at the other side, scaling all those people up is impossible. So how do you scale up as many as you can and then work the right people in to be those kind of senior leaders? And I would say, personally, I was really good at the scaling up. I think we did a better job than most anyone that I've seen there. But I was actually not great at hiring the senior person in and plugging them in. We had several failures on senior folks that we brought in, that we plugged in to maybe the wrong role or the wrong personality or misaligned goals for them, that just didn't work. And so that might be part of the reason I still like to hire that, kind of up and coming person and grow them, because that's my skill set. And I know some leaders are really good at plugging in the right senior people. And it's a work area for me.
I love it.